Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
You may be asking, why is it so hard to find quality employees for my business? When running a business, you face new challenges every day. Finding the right candidates and keeping them during this time is extremely critical to your success. Every business should be able to find the right candidates with a proven system and retain them by coaching them to success. The Success in Hiring Framework gives you the tools you need to attract, engage, and retain quality team members so that you can move your business to the next level. With my Success in Hiring system for business owners, you will learn how to recruit, hire, and retain the right fit for your unique business. I created this system after all my experience as a business owner with the same struggles as you. Best of all, it is free. Why do I do that? Because my purpose in life is to help business owners reach their full potential. Go to chargepodcast.com and click on the link, Success in Hiring, to start you on the path to hiring the right people for your business. Well, welcome, Chargers. We're glad to have you back again this week for another great guest. I'm telling you, we've found some great guests in second quarter to bring you, to give you different perspectives and really to learn. Because as business owners, we have to continue to learn how our business is changing and evolving. And that is what we do on this podcast. So I'm so glad to have Gene here today. But before I introduce Gene, tell us, what problem will you solve for our listeners today?
Gary, I'm going to solve the problem, which I think is holding a lot of your listeners back. The million-dollar question, how do you create great professional success? And I really believe you can't have real, true professional success without having personal success. So I'll try to answer that question for you.
Well, great. I know this is going to be a great conversation because I love talking about that, because you can't just have it in one area. It's about putting it in both areas. Now, if I ask you three questions, Gene, what would you tell our listeners that you will help solve them when I ask you those questions? What's three questions I can ask you that you'll help solve?
Well, I'm going to give them number one. Right now in this marketplace, Gary, it is critical to attract talent if you're a business owner, right? I am going to share with them, based on my 30 years in executive search and building one of the largest retained search firms and placing over 1,000 executives, I am going to give them three things that have, if you can find this, will lead to a long-term fit between a company and a candidate. So hopefully they'll have that and be able to screen around it. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is I'm going to give them, right? I know I listened to one of your interviews and you gave them some great tips on how to find people. The problem you have is when you go on to all the online boards, Gary, right? Most of those people that are responding and sending their resume from online boards, they're either unemployed, but most of the time they're unhappy. And that's why they're looking on those boards, right? I am going to share with them some questions that they can incorporate upfront into every interview that can help them maybe put that fit together quickly, because that candidate that's responding to them, Gary, they're responding to 6 or 7 or 8 other postings. And the better you can do on these things I'm going to share with them, the better the chance they'll have on attracting that candidate. Okay. Excellent. And the third thing I'm going to do with them, as a business owner, having owned multiple businesses, selling multiple businesses, I'm going to share with them some simple tips that they can incorporate into their company that might help them create the culture that can drive revenue and a culture that allows people to be happy and stay with them for a long time.
Oh, this is going to be a fun conversation. So today, I've got Gene Rice with me. He's going to share the rags to riches author of the CEO, Gene Rice, his high school English teacher and daughter, Courtney, helped write, share critical information alongside professional and personal successes. and failures to demystify adulthood. And you've kind of heard some of Gene's story already that he talked about. They're co-authors of the book, Grad the Grown-Up, which teaches everything you didn't learn in school, but all you need to know to launch your personal and professional life. The 5 sections, life, job search, career, personal, finance, and health and relationships, provide real-world insights that are often overlooked in formal education. Gene Rice is a leading executive retained recruiter, placing over 1,000 executives while building one of the largest search firms in the world. He is also chairman of Rice Cohen International and co-founder of Plant a Seed, Inspire a Dream Foundation, which has helped over 700 kids and children pursue their passion. He brings a desire to help others to all he does. Gene, it is great to have you on the Charge podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm looking forward to this because we're going to talk to those business owners. And at the end, we're going to talk about the book because we know those business owners most likely have some children that can really help them in that area. But you and I discussed ahead of time, and we decided because this hiring challenge, this great resignation that they keep talking about, how can business owners make that difference? And one of the things you talked about in the very beginning is what's some things that they can attract talent to really help their company get the candidates that they're searching for. So you said you had some areas that you think you can help our business owners in that area.
Here's the one thing that I want to share with your audience, Gary, right? And we go into this in great detail in Grad to Grown-Up, right? There are 3 things that I've identified that if you can find them, okay, it will lead to a good hire and a long-term hire. Here's what candidates are looking for. And candidates need to look for this as well. And I think if your business owners understand what they're looking for, it might help them, address it. The first thing and first thing is any candidate that joins their firm, they should feel coming in, I can make a contribution. I can add value to your company. Now, some of the younger adults, it may not be that in depth, but that business owner that's trying to attract them at some point needs to share with that potential hire. Here's what I see you doing. Here's what I see you adding value. Here's how I see you growing. Now, the second thing that's equally as important, and for young adults, it's even more important. A year after joining one of your listeners' companies, that new hire should be able to take a step back, look in the mirror, and say, as a result of joining this company, I've grown professionally in these ways. It can't be all one way where they're contributing, but they're not growing professionally. Mm-hmm. So your business owners need to communicate with them up front. Hey, here's where we feel we can help you in your professional career. And here's the third thing, which I have noticed with a lot of my clients, I consult with them, Gary. Here's where they miss it. The most important thing with that new hire is the first 2 things can be there, but if number 3 is not there, the person's going to leave and be unhappy pretty quickly. They need to not only respect the person they're going to report to and the people they're rubbing shoulders with every day, but they need to like them enough that if they had to go out and break bread, it wouldn't be something they dread. A new hire coming in, if they do not have some sort of rapport with their direct boss, they're going to be unhappy and they're going to leave. So I want your business owners to understand that managerial relationship and the other people they're going to be working closely with, there has to be something there. And they need to really screen around that and make that connection before they make the offer to the candidate.
Yeah, what great advice there, Gene. I really appreciate you sharing that. And we're going to have great show notes. And I'll be quite honest, a business owner is probably going to need to listen to again to really go back to, because this day and age, you can change the process, but you help determine that. You may not be directly, like on that last one, that respecting their peer, that leader, but you've got to create the foundation in your organization that leader is providing what you're wanting, because otherwise they're going to come and go with it. They won't be there in a year if they're not providing that.
Absolutely.
Well, another area we talked about that we wanted to kind of get into is I talk a lot about behavior-based interview questions and did a session kind of trying to help business owners on that myself. And one of the things you talked about is you definitely believe in the behavior-based interviews, as you and I were talking offline, but what you can help give them before the interview process, maybe some questions that you can ask before you get in that to discover a little bit more to know if that's the right candidate for them.
Yeah. And Gary, I have a very unique perspective because my search firm, we used, one of our vertical markets that we specialized in was the whole assessment and selection area. So our clients are the people that developed all these behavior-based approaches. So DDI out of Pittsburgh, PDI that was acquired by Korn Ferry, big client of ours, SHL. We put C-level executives into all those firms, right? I had to fly out to one of my clients because at the end, when I first started working with them, they'd go through this intense behavior-based interviewing approach. And at the end of it, they'd make an offer, a hire, a job offer, and the candidates were turning it down. You know why? They weren't spending the time to really make the connection with the candidate. So I had to go out and add some things to it. I want your listeners to understand that if you're going to do a behavior-based interview, try to connect the dots up front first. Especially a lot of small business owners, they're getting their candidates from the online boards, right? They need to understand the concept here. If a candidate is responding to them from an online posting for a job opening, the candidate is either unemployed, but most likely they're unhappy, or else they're not looking at those boards. So they need to understand that they're going to respond to them and 8 or 9 other companies that are looking for someone. So they're competing for that candidate if they want to hire them, right? So behavior-based approach, the competencies, the dimensions, I think they're critical. It's the best way to make a sound hiring decision. But up front, I'm going to share with them how we would interview a candidate up front first, and maybe set it up before you go into the behavior-based interview. Remember, you want that person to feel that you care about them. You care about them up front. It's not, hey, I got an opening, I want to see if you fit. Now, how do you do that? So in my company, we're up front when we schedule an interview with them. We're going to say to them up front, first of all, what was it about what we shared with you that got you intrigued enough to at least want to sit down and interview with us? And we call those our reasons why. And we're going to, throughout the whole process, before the first interview, every debrief, we're going to ask if those reasons hold true, then any new reasons surface. We build the reasons why. But up front, we're going to ask them some simple questions. And I think if your listeners ask this, it might help them first determine, is it a match? And number 2, what are the important things I need to hit on with this candidate? So I'm going to say to them up front, the first question, I really want to understand your background. In your professional career, would you mind sharing with me when you've been the happiest professionally and what was going on that made you feel that way? Okay. I want to know when they were happiest. Second question I'm going to ask them, can you tell me what you enjoy most about your current position in your current company?
Okay.
Third question I asked them, if you were the CEO of your current company, what would you change about it? I want to see if there's any pain points, Gary.
Yeah.
And the fourth question we're going to ask them is, if I was to give you a magic wand and I was to say to you, you could create the ideal next job and company for yourself, tell me what you would create. What would the company be doing? What would the culture be like? What would your role be? Now before the behavior-based interview takes place, Gary, you have to, do I have a match with what I can offer this candidate? Is there things that I can go back to and address? And is there things that we can discuss that at the end, I can feel that bringing them on board, this is going to be a good fit. And I'm going to constantly, so before the offer is made, when I really want this candidate, I am going to go back to them. I'm going to say, the first time I talked to you, I asked you a couple of simple questions. This is what you shared with me. I want to relate to you how my company in this role will match when you've been happiest and what you're looking to do next. And that's how you put the piece together. And then that coupled with, Gary, the reasons why philosophy. Business owners are busy. They're busy. But this is an important hiring decision that can impact the culture of your company. And the smaller your company is, that higher, the more critical it is and how it can affect the culture, right? So up front, I'm going to constantly, be asking them, hey, you met with so-and-so, tell me, what did you hear from us that has you intrigued enough that you're willing to go through the next step of the interviewing process? What's attracting you? Tell me, what questions do you still need to get addressed to have what you and your family need to understand to make the right decision? Is this a good fit for both of us? Second interview, did those reasons hold true? Did any new reasons surface? Sometimes I might go back and I might share with them some things that I think are very unique about my company and say, did someone share with you that we have this 401k match? Did someone share to you how we have summer hours? I'm building the reasons why. So before the final interview, I'm having 11, 12, 13 things, and none of them should be money driven. Well, money can be one, but if it's the only thing, don't hire that person. Because as soon as someone else comes along and offers a little bit more money, they're gone. They're gone, right? So that's how you build the fit. So you feel as a business owner, you know what? I know why this candidate's joining me. I know that we can address their pain points. I know what we need to do to show them that they can grow professionally. And when you can match that up with the first three things I shared about, then you have an opportunity for a good long-term match going forward.
Yeah. And what you do is you're really creating that complete match. And when you go to the behavior base, then it's going to give you to know if they've got the skills to do it. But you know the individual and you're building it up. And it's the big thing I love what you talked about, Gene. It's making yourself think differently and think about most business owners. If you do what you talked about, you're going to be totally different of how you've interviewed versus everything else they went through in the interview process.
Absolutely.
So you stand out like a 10, you're a perfect 10 because that client is going home and they're excited. That candidate is excited about getting this opportunity to get the next call at the interview again.
And Gary, I would tell my clients, listen, the goal, if you're taking the time to interview a candidate, I want the goal. I want every candidate you interview to want to come work for you.
Yeah.
And this is what you need to do to get to the point where they all want to come work for you. And even if you don't make an offer to them, I want them to leave feeling really good about your company and how you got to know them. That they're going to be in the marketplace. You want them to be a positive reference for you, right? So, and I did executive retained search. So what happens is we got paid. We worked exclusively with the client. So we interviewed all the candidates, Gary, the external, the internal, and it was a 1-year guarantee, right? Which meant that if it didn't work out, we had to replace it all over again. But the bigger issue for me is because they were C-level positions, more than half of the executives would have to pick their families up from one city and move to another city to run the company. And if I felt like I was going to ask someone to pick their family up and move, I wanted to feel, and I wanted my team to feel, hey, we did everything we can to make sure this was a good match on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, some great feedback there and great advice. Going to be some great show notes. And like I said, this is one of those that people are going to have to go back and listen to a couple of times. The last thing you kind of talked about is just looking at the business owner, not so much just about hiring. There's some definitely tips there of how you'll propel and grow your business, but how to kind of take that culture to really allow you that opportunity to propel and grow your business and kind of grow your revenues as well as your company.
And the one thing I want to share with your listeners, Gary, and this is something that I really, I've experienced with the people that I've placed, right? The conference board came out with a survey recently. They said that 45 to 60-year-old executives, that 51% of them don't have job satisfaction in what they do. I saw another survey where they interviewed 2,000 executives. They were all male, where it was 79% have no job satisfaction. And I think that's really sad. So here you are at the end of your career. And listen, the guys I placed, they weren't only 6-figure guys, they were 7-figure guys, right? And a lot of them, the ones that were most valuable, the ones that added the most value to the company and added the most valuable to their staff and their team, were the ones that figured out that they had purpose in their lives, right? There was purpose. Right? They woke up in the morning and they went to something where it wasn't a job, right? They loved what they were doing. And I think one of the goals of life should always be, every human being's goal should be to find something that they love doing and then doing it well enough that they can create a career around it, right? Get purpose in your life. You can't have true professional success without the personal success, right? And the book, Grad to Grown, will go into that. It goes into everything I did to create it on my own, and it's everything from career to life to relationships and everything else. So, but I want to just give some of your business owners, and listen, I have a real eclectic background. College, I went from managing rock and roll clubs to owning rock and roll clubs. One was super successful. One was the greatest failure of my life. I went to corporate America, had great success, opened a retained for search firm, sold it twice. And I just want to share some things with your business owners. If they buy into, and I'm going to tell them this is critical, that you got to have purpose in your life. Help your staff and help your company create purpose. And one of the ways I did it, Gary, you want people to stay with you? This came natural to me because me and my wife felt this way. That's why, we established a charity. We'd have the staff and we would do a fundraiser. So I love basketball. It started off where I did a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. My whole staff, their spouses, the families got involved, and we raised money to, help Make-A-Wish and grant the kids' wish. The first year, I think we raised like $3,500. By the fifth and sixth year, we were raising $60,000, and we were fulfilling 10 to 12 wishes, right? Then once a year, I would take my whole staff for 2 days and Habitat for Humanity, where we'd go out and help them build a house, right? We would invite their spouses, their significant others to come with us. Now, I'm not very handy, Gary, so I was one of these guys that was painting the inside of a closet, but I had some people on my staff that could really add value. But I want to tell you, not only was it something I believed in, but I got to tell you how that built teamwork, collaboration, how the spouses and families felt about us doing that, right? Taking everyone out and doing that. So, and it doesn't cost anything. And I got to tell you, you want your people to stay, especially this current generation. They want greater purpose. They want to contribute. They want to be able to go home and say, hey, listen, my company's doing this. Do you want to take 2 days off and do it with me? So that's the first thing that I really encourage your business owners to do. Okay. The other thing that I'm going to share with your business owners, and I got to tell you, I think this is one of the reasons why my company did so well and grew from year to year. It doesn't take very much. It can be done over Zoom. It can be done in person, but every first of every month, myself and every managers with our direct reports, we had a month-end review. Now, some companies do it annually. Some companies do it semi-annually. Some companies do it quarterly. I would do it every month. Now, in that month meeting, at the end of that month meeting, because I know you're big on this, right? Yeah. We would review the 5 goals the individual set the month before. Now, those 5 goals came from them, and what we needed them to do was their direct manager. Now, we attached like a little bonus to it, like $25 a goal. It doesn't matter. But they managed themselves on these 5 goals. It could be we have XYZ search. It's really critical. We need to get the short list of 5 candidates in by this date, right? We need, whatever it is, was 5 things that was very, very measurable, right? Then they would give us the 5 goals for the following month, right? We would recognize them for the things that they did well that month, right? And every 30 days, those reviews, I got to tell you, I've had people carry into other companies. It really helped us keep a handle on what was important. It kept us in touch with that person, right? And it allowed us input on what those 5 most specific things were, okay? The other thing as a business owner, and I don't care if you're doing this by Zoom, if you're doing it by the phone, I always felt as a business owner, I wanted to touch as many people in my company every single day in a positive way. It could be as simple as saying, hey, I noticed you did this, great job on that. Hey, I know you mentioned this in a meeting. I really liked what you said here, right? And by touching people that way, in a very simple way, it built the kind of culture that I wanted to establish in my company. Yep. Okay, it built the kind of culture I wanted. Okay. Yep. Next thing I'm going to share with them. And this helped my company grow tremendously. It's one of the things the book is based on. Bring in interns. I would bring in 4 college interns every summer for 8 weeks. I paid them minimum wage. We gave them back. But at the end of those 8 weeks, right, I knew if there was any of them that I wanted to hire. Okay.
Yep.
I contributed to my community by bringing those 4 interns in. And I would tell them on the first day, right, I get these 4 people and I'd say to them, Gary, listen, you're here doing an 8-week internship in an executive search firm. If you don't accomplish these 3 things over the next 8 weeks, you've wasted your time here. Okay. Number 1, it's an executive search internship. At the end of the 8 weeks, you should be able to answer the question, could I see myself doing this? And could I see myself being happy doing this? And if the answer is no, that's okay. That's why you do an internship. Number 2, okay, there are people in this office. We are really busy. A lot of them are senior people. However, if you go out of your way to reach out to them, they will go out to lunch with you. Okay, they will talk to you and they will give you time. At the end of this 8 weeks, if you leave here and you don't have people that would talk on your behalf as a reference, or even possibly be a mentor to you in your career, you've wasted your 8 weeks here. And the third thing, Gary, I say to them is this: executive search internship. When you leave this 8 weeks, if you're not a grandmaster or a Hall of Famer in interviewing, you've wasted your time, because you're going to learn how to become a grandmaster in interviewing. And here's why it's so critical for you. When you interview for that job you really want, you're going to be interviewing with 4 or 5 people that really want it. The grandmaster gets the offer, all right? So the grandmaster. So at the end of 8 weeks, we would role play with them, right? But try to bring those interns in, even if it's only, I started off with 1 way back when, you know what I mean? And I added 2, and then, you know, I'd have senior people take responsibilities for each one of them, you know, mentor them for those 8 weeks. They enjoyed that. They like giving back to the young people, you know? So those are some quick things off the top of my head that I wanted to share with your listeners.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Gene. A lot of great information there on that. And I truly appreciate you giving that, because that's some great advice of really have how connecting. And I think you're really on to something, because I see it all the time. When we connect with those, especially this day and age, it's going to set you apart in the interview process. And it comes back to the same thing. Once they come on board with you, you can't stop that.
No.
You still got to connect with them, and that purpose that you're talking about, it's not just your purpose in the business. It's about getting them to join in on that purpose. And the nice thing is, if you have a purpose as a business owner, they'll be glad to join in. In my company that I had in the wireless industry, I was, we supported Special Olympics, and we did these polar plunges and stuff. And our people would jump in, their families would get involved. They'd help sell raffle tickets, whatever it took, because they knew that we were helping at that event. And then we would go to the games and we would volunteer and help in that. And that's the thing is, don't think about, well, that's not their purpose. A lot of times they want a shared purpose. And when they see the company has one, that becomes a real win. So I love the philosophy there. You and I've got several things in common that I think we could probably talk for hours, but because of a time constraint, because we know our listeners are busy people, let's talk just a little bit about the book that you and Courtney wrote and kind of share with them. You've talked about already a couple of things out of that, but if I was a business owner, or if I have children, I do have those. As I was telling you, Gene, I've got a 23, 21, and 18-year-old. They're all in college. One's graduated and stuff on that side of it. The other one comes up in next December. So I'm at this time. What can I expect to get out of it? And why would you recommend it to me?
Gary, here's the thing. There's 68 tips in this book. It covers 5 sections. It's life, it's interviewing, it's career, it's health, it's relationships, and it's personal finance. So let's take the personal finance. I've been very blessed to create great wealth in my life. Okay. It's going to explain to somebody everything. These are all the young people asking me questions. If your company, your first job has a 401k and they do a match, should I, invest? Absolutely. It takes them through a fail safe, here's where you put the money, right? Here's what you do with it, and leave it alone, right? I talk about stocks. You don't ever invest in anything you don't understand 100%. I talk about credit cards. I talk about credit scores. If you don't have one, how do you get one? If you have a bad one, how do you fix it, right? So it goes into all, and the biggest thing that it goes into, you're moving out of your parents' house for the first time, right? You have to understand what it's going to cost to live on your own, right? And then how much the job has to pay after taxes for you to be able to afford it. So it walks them through a whole formula from the personal finance area. Now, on the other side of it, it gives them, here's the thing, Gary. I'm really big on, you got to follow your passions. And a lot of your listeners are parents, right? Or grandparents, right? What really frustrates me is when these young adults are going into professions, right, that they've never had any experience in. And then 2 or 3 years later, they come back to me and they hate what they're doing. Okay. So as a parent, I want to encourage other parents that if your young person has a passion, they're passionate about something. I don't care if it's creating video games. I don't care if it's starting a lawn service. Our job as a parent is to support the heck out of that passion, right? Every great dream began with a dreamer. Now, doesn't mean you can't talk about a plan B, but I want the goal in life should be to find something that you sincerely love and then doing it well enough to create a career around it. The book will show them how to do that. A lot of the young adults don't know how to pursue it. I give them a roadmap. This is how you get interviews. And once you get an interview, this is how you win the job. And then if you won the job and you get the offer, here's how you negotiate the offer. And this is how you resign professionally from where you're going, right? And then the career section is going to tell them, here's what you need to understand when you show up, right? There's no elevator to success. You got to take the stairs. You got to be ready to show up and you got to be ready to put the time in. It talks to them about the importance of sometimes you got to manage your manager. And how do you do that, right? You got to be part of a team. How do you contribute effectively? It goes into all that. And it even goes into, Gary, my greatest success is my 38-year marriage and my 4 kids and my 4 grandkids, right? I've had so many of these young adults come to me, I've been dating this person. I don't know if it's the one. Can you give me any insight? And I share with them what my wife and I went through before we got engaged. Unfortunately, we have a divorce rate of over almost 50%. A lot of the questions aren't being asked up front. Here's how you understand, do you have the same values? Is your foundation the same, right? But this book is something for everyone. And you can get a lot out of it. And if you get 2 or 3 things out of it, then it's been worth the time. And Gary, the last thing I want to share with you, you tell your audience that if they buy the book, they're making a contribution to the charity my wife and I started, the Plant a Seed, Inspire a Dream Foundation. Any financial reward I get is going directly to the charity. And the charity has helped over 800 kids who are coming from financially challenged families pursue their passions. You talk about, you have kids. I had 4 kids. One was into acting. My son was a basketball player, right? What do those passions do for a teenage kid, right? Well, first of all, it builds their self-esteem. I don't care what the passion is. It could be art, it could be cooking, it could be sports, it could be music. It builds their self-esteem. It connects them with positive role models, the sensei, the guitar teacher. And depending on the passion, it connects them with like-minded kids. So they have a social network. My son is getting married April 30th. 3 of his ushers are young men that he started playing travel and AAU basketball with in 4th grade, right? Now, you go into the inner cities or you go into some of these areas and there are a lot of single parents and their young kids have the same passions, but they don't have the money to send the kid to the guitar lesson, or they don't have the money to go to cheerleading. They don't have the money to take karate. We step in, we find the teacher, the sensei, we put them together, we interview both sides of the family. Once a month, we're touching it. We go back, we make sure it's working well. We give them an annual scholarship. We renew it every year. And we've had so many kids go on to great things. Last week I had a young man who's been taking drum lessons for 5 years. He actually got a full drum scholarship to a private high school in Philadelphia. I didn't know they gave drum scholarships. I had another young man a couple of months ago, Gary. He came to us in 4th grade. He was small. He was getting bullied. He wanted to take karate. We found him a karate studio 2 blocks from his house. He ended up taking karate lessons for 4 times a week. He's 15 now. He's a 3rd degree black belt. And the sensei called us up and said, Plant a Seed doesn't need to pay for him anymore. he's going to be my assistant and help me train other kids. Oh. So it's the plantaseedfoundation.org. If any of your listeners know someone that we can help, we'd love to listen to it. And like I said, all the money going from the sales of the book will go to help these kids.
Well, thank you for what you're doing in your foundations. And that just shows you as business owners, that's one of our callings, I believe, is when you created success, it's about giving back. And Gene is showing that not only with the book, but the other things that he's done with this foundation. So I congratulate you on that. Gene, where would they go to pick up the book?
Yeah, go right to the website, Grad to Grown Up, GRADTO, grownup.com. You can go on there. You can buy it from Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's right there. I'd love to, anything I can help anyone with, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Gene Rice, Rice Cohen International. My email is genericerci@gmail.com. And I just think there's a lot there that can help a lot of people, Gary. I appreciate you letting me talk about it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and what great information for everyone. And we'll have that in show notes because we know our people are active when they're doing this. So all you have to do is go to chargepodcast.com, get that download. And if you have kids, to me, it's one as a parent, I want to read because then I can truly give that to them as a gift. And I can see already it's a graduation gift for them. But it's going to be more than just give it, because one of the things that I always believe in, you don't get nothing out of a book unless you read it. So, I'm going to have something in there. I don't know what that is yet. Don't want to give it up because my son does the podcast editing. But I'm going to have some way that I know that he's read the book and that he takes the lessons out of it that you put in it. So, Gene, I can't thank you enough for joining us today on the Charge Podcast.
You take care of yourself, Gary. And if I can do anything for you just let me know. All right, I love what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Chargers, I tell you what, we've got a lot of things here. I don't know even what to tell you. The one action I'll give you is go back and listen to this again. Because if you are that business owner or you are that parent, there's lessons that he gave us in this podcast of really helping them find their purpose, but then also for yourself of finding that purpose in your business. And right now you may be struggling with that. You may say, well, I've got a construction business and what's my purpose? Well, you're creating dreams for families, and that's going to live in them homes, and think about how many memories they're going to make. So you can find what that purpose is. But the thing is, you got to take some time to give yourself some time to figure out what that is. And as you come up with that, then that's going to make a big difference in your business as you're trying to find the right people on your team. Because if you get the right people on your team, they'll help create your dreams and they'll let them come through. So, Chargers, I thank you for joining us today. We'll be back next week with another great podcast. Please join us. Remember, this is one of those podcasts. Hit those 3 little dots on your app and share this with some other business owners that you know and say, you need to listen to this podcast because this could help you. Thanks for doing that. Make it a great day. We'll see you next week.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.